What's going on, guys? Mitch here. Just wanted to do a quick video on the 2020 or 2021, it's the same frame, Santa Cruz Tallboy Carbon long-term review. After a full season of riding, I wanted to give you my thoughts on it, what I thought of it, and just an overall perspective on what it does great, what it could do better at, and hopefully influence people who want to find out a little more about it. So let's kick it off and check it out. So after a full season of use, I just wanted to basically let you guys know I didn't want to sugarcoat how the bike looks. This is it as it stands right now. I probably could have washed it and cleaned it up and made it look pretty for the camera, but quite frankly I don't care, and nor should you. This is what the everyday Santa Cruz Tallboy is going to look like after you do ride it for a full season. So with that being said, let's talk about it in a little more detail. So here is the model on the frame, the Carbon C model. They do make the CC version, which is about a half a pound lighter for the frame. Considering I'm not racing this bike, I don't really care about that. I'd rather put that extra, $1,000 or $2,000 into, perhaps a carbon wheel set or something like that, where to me it'll make more of a difference. So this is a review on the C version. So to start with, as you can kind of tell with the Tallboy C, you get this white badge on the front of the head tube. The Santa Cruz lettering would be red if it was the CC. That is one way to differentiate the two. So as with most of the recent Santa Cruz updates, they have made everything internal for the cable routing. So that is for the seat post as well as the entire drivetrain. So this frame being no exception to that. Everything is kept nice and quiet in that regard. As well, the actual frame has routing internally, like a track system for those cables, so it's they don't get lost in there and it's easy to set up and maintain. So I went with the S build kit. So that comes with a Fox 34, 130mm travel fork in a float package. This is not a grip 2 damper, this is a standard grip damper. To me, this fork is an excellent balance of weight and stiffness. It's not too stiff, so it doesn't mute the trail completely. Remember, this is a DownCountry bike, so you don't need a ton of stiffness and travel. It's just to take the edge off, but it proved to be quite more capable than I was expecting compared to the Fox 36 on the Mega Tower. And like I said, very lightweight with that grip damper. Now, I actually opted to change the stock handlebar that came on this. I think it was a race face in favor of a carbon lightweight WR1 bar as part of a package. So that was a great addition. I kept that at a 20mm rise and 800mm width for me, which matches the double XL frame quite nicely. WR1 partnered with a company that helped design this bar stem system, which I felt was an actually really good fit. And like I said, it kind of keeps the weight really down, and then kept the manufacturing in Canada on the bar. Big fan of this setup, and I'd recommend it to anybody. As mentioned, I kept the wheel set in line with the bar and stem brand WR1. Went with the Faction wheel set to marry the Maxxis stock rubber. This has been flawless without any issues. When the product manager specs Maxxis Minion, a DHF and then a DHR2 and a 2.3 all-around exos, they really know what they're doing. I was a big fan of this setup. It'd be basically what I would spec if I was building this frame up. And for this DownCountry bike, a 2.3 is exactly what you'd want. On the suspension side on the back, having 120mm travel is pretty important to utilize it really well. The Fox Float DPS did a great job of this. I wouldn't say it did an excellent job. I'd say it was more of a good job. It's nothing fancy, rebound and a 3-part compression at the flick of a switch, so you can change that as needed. Nothing too special, nothing too fancy. It's just there to take the edge off and keep the weight down. I would like to have a reservoir shock for me personally, but maybe in future iterations of this frame, they will make room for that. The shock tunnel is the limiting factor on what kind of shocks you can fit in here, which, like I said, isn't a huge limiting factor, but it would be nice to have a little more clearance to fit something with a reservoir or a little more aggressive. This little fender here does a great job of keeping dirt and debris from the wheel entering onto the shock body. It's an invaluable tool. You know, you could take it off and save whatever it is, 20 grams, big whoop. But, you know, I ride in dry, dusty environment, typically with a little bit of wetness. And as you can see, it is covered in some stuff, especially below it on the link. So I really dig that, and those are replaceable if you do manage to somehow break them. The bearings on the frame have been invaluably great. No issues. Everything's moving smoothly and freely, just like the day the frame was new, which is likely why they offer a lifetime bearing replacement on the frame. So the rear flip chip gives you the opportunity to lengthen or shorten the chainstay of the bike, the chainstay length. For me, being a double XL frame rider, I decided to lengthen it, as you can see here. It is in the back position. This really just helps moving my front center forward and giving the bike a little more stability on the downs. Now, the rear shock has its own setting for this, in a high and a low position. I have it set in the low position just simply because I want a lower bottom bracket, and you know, some people that over fork it maybe to 140 mil could also put it in a low position to kind of keep that neutral setting on the bottom bracket height. But for me, primarily more interested in the descending portion of this bike, I've always kept it in the low position just by flipping that rear shock flip chip as well, which is a great feature to have to custom tailor the bike to your needs. I like having the ability to put a water bottle mount on the front triangle, as you can see here. As well, there are two mounts underneath the frame that if you wanted to mount a water bottle cage on the bottom, it's available. So 2 water bottle mounts on a bike like this is really, really invaluable to have. So being the S build kit, it comes with a SRAM GX drivetrain. So here we have the stylo crank set. I think it's a stylo 7000 or something like that, with a narrow wide 32 tooth, and Eagle GX cassette with an Eagle GX derailleur. No issues here, rock solid. It's an aluminum crank. There's nothing special here. It is what it is, other than those dub caps. This guy here, they tend to have an issue with falling out. I find them all the time on the trail. Most companies now are doing press fit bottom brackets. I'm glad that Santa Cruz kept with the threaded BB choice. That is not cheap to put into a frame nowadays, and it kept the frame nice and quiet. No creaks, no squeaks, no issues. More companies need to continue with threaded BBs and push this stupid press fit junk out of the industry, in my opinion. The GX drivetrain has been flawless. I've had no issues with it. Some people do. That's not to say that it doesn't work or it does work. I'm just saying that I don't have issues with it. It could come down to setup for some people, but you know, it's a rock solid 11 to 50 tooth. I know they do offer the 52 tooth now version on the cassette, but everything shifts great. No issues. I'm going to ride it into next year and replace it as needed, but it's rock solid, good value, and good spec for the money. Just from my experience being a lighter bike, the Tallboy does come with a 32 tooth chainring, and I have been able to make that work for me without any issues. Being 120 mils of travel, 32 tooth works great. It's nice and snappy, and the bike's light, and it wants to climb just perfectly with that gear ratio. It comes with a RockShox reverb post. It's nothing crazy. When it works great. When it doesn't work, it can have issues. Just Google RockShox reverb seat post, and I'm sure you'll see what I'm talking about. So I did change the brakes on this bike from the, I don't even know what comes with it, SRAM guides or something, to Shimano XTs. Good solid option, 2-piston brake. Would I like a little more? You know, I'd probably go to the Shimano XT 4 pistons if I could make the change moving forward. But dual 180 rotors, I think this is a fantastic fit for this bike. Keeps the weight down, the power up to a manageable level. And yeah, solid choice on the brakes. Coming with a boost rear end, so 12 mil by 148. You know, kept things nice and light, very stiff. It still bugs me when people don't clock these skewers correctly. You can just pull them out on a spring like this and move them to whatever you'd like. Keep them pointing backwards so that you don't get that caught on a branch on the trail, please. But really big fan of boost. I'm glad they stuck with it. As well, as you can see here on the other side of the frame, it does have those integrated chain guide mount ISCG 05 mounts if you do in fact want to use them. which, I don't think you need it personally, but it does give you the option to run a chain guide or a top mount or a bottom mount or whatever the hell you want, a taco bash. Really good. Just one more thing that's built into this frame to customize it to your riding style. This built-in chainstay protector made of rubber both on the top and bottom really quiet the bike down. When you are going down the trail, it doesn't sound like you're hearing anything. It's just so quiet. You just hear the trail. I really, really like how this is integrated in, and I have had no issues with it all season long. So who's a Tallboy for? Well, I would say it's for someone who's into that downcountry market, someone who really wants 120 mils of travel to be the limiting factor and not the geometry. To me, it's weird. It's a 65-degree head tube angle on this bike with a nice steep seat tube angle on it. So it's truly very interesting that you hop on this bike versus the High Tower or the Mega Tower, and they feel the same. The limiting factor is not the geometry, it's the travel. So it's cool because it's 3, 4, 5 pounds lighter in a build, and you can get to the top real quick. And then if you just want something to take the edge off and go down the same trails you'd ride on those bikes, you can. It's really, really cool. Or conversely, if you're on a bike that, you're a lightweight cross-country rider and you want something that is an enduro bike to you, well, that would be this as well. It's truly a really cool category. You can build this to cheat it towards the downhill. You can cheat it towards the cross country. It's really, really cool. So it's probably one of my favorite bikes I've ever ridden, just because it's so unique in that regard. So the downhill or downcountry guys, they're gonna love this bike. It's a really remarkable category right now. Don't get too hung up on the spec of the bike itself, because things are going to break, things are going to change. Going over this, I go, well, I changed the wheels, I changed the bar, I changed the brakes. These are all personal preferences. You can do whatever the hell you want with it. But what you can't change is the frame, the angles, in some cases, the shock, the suspension. I don't bother with that kind of stuff. It's too expensive for me unless someone wants to give it to me, which no one has yet. But, you can cheat it to how you want the bike to ride, and it's a truly fantastic bike in the downcountry realm that you can make it do really whatever you want it to. The travel is the limiting factor, and the frame can take it. It can take 10, 12 foot drops, no problem. You can climb it all day. You can be in the saddle for 4 or 5 hours without having issues. So don't get too hung up on the parts and what part comes with this, and this has different hubs and this rim. Really don't get too hung up onto that kind of stuff, because it can change and it's not going to change the ride that much. The frame will, the travel will, the head angle will. So that's kind of my overall take on this guy. Overall, we've got a bike that's great for climbing, even better for descending, in my opinion, limited by its travel, good angles for that, and just a really good all-arounder. You could probably sit in this thing and do 4-hour epics. You could, climb scree and do some descending. You can ride your enduro trails. It's not limited by the geometry. It can really, truly do everything. So it's durable. The paint to me is a good finish. The weight is great. The pivots are solid. It's got 2 water bottle mounts. This is a fantastic bike. It's one of my favorites that I've ridden in a very long time, and I would definitely look into it if you're in that downcountry kind of segment, looking for something a little more aggressive than a trail bike, but a little less aggressive than a full-on enduro bike, which it tends to be kind of our age category these days, is getting into something in that one bike quiver killing mentality. It's really, really great in that regard. So that's kind of it from me, guys. If you have any questions, leave them below. I'm definitely willing to answer them, especially on the technical side. That's the kind of stuff I love. So if you have any feedback, leave it below. But that's it. That's my long-term review. I think these are some of the things that it does great. And, obviously I talked about some things that, could definitely be improved. RockShox reverb post. And that's it for now. So leave a comment, subscribe, hit a like, and we'll see you next time. All right, guys? Peace.